This is the morning of the 17th. A clip put up by Politics Talk. Prison inevitable. Secret Trump meeting leaks! Exclamation marks. Let's have a listen to this clip. Plays for just under 20 minutes.
Some of his most prominent past lawyers, like Giuliani and Eastman, were recently named co-conspirators in those DOJ charges and could ultimately be indicted. The whole scandal has echoes of Nixon's All the President's Men, though now it would be all the ex-presidents or defendants' lawyers. At the New York trial, you can actually see him right there. That's a big prime seat right next to local New York counsel at Donald Trump's arraignment table for his first ever criminal arraignment. The man you see there is Boris Epstein. He speaks to Trump many times, sometimes up to 5 times a day, according to the Washington Post, and not only serves as a Trump lawyer, our special report right now turns to a lawyer at the center of all this, a man who campaigned for Trump in both of his presidential bids, who did serve in the White House, who aided efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and who has staked out a very special legal role in Trump's clashes with Jack Smith, but has risen to a kind of first among equals status or more because he oversees many, if not all, of the lawyers, including some with far more experience on Trump's team. Now, this is a huge rise for a person who was factually not a senior Republican strategist before Trump came along in national politics.
Okay, so this is devastating. A secret meeting between Trump and his lawyers has been leaked, and I mean leaked with audio and notes. The entire strategy session where Trump and his legal team discussed how to handle the classified documents case, how to respond to DOJ subpoenas, how to deal with obstruction allegations. All of it captured and leaked to the press and prosecutors. And what the leak reveals is catastrophic for Trump. It shows his lawyers warning him that failing to comply with subpoenas would be a crime. It shows discussions about hiding evidence. It shows strategy sessions about how to obstruct investigations. All of it proving that Trump knew what he was doing was illegal, that he was deliberately violating the law, that his entire defense strategy was built on obstruction and deception. Legal experts are saying this leak makes prison inevitable because you can't defend against your own recorded admissions. You can't claim ignorance when there's audio of your lawyers telling you compliance is mandatory. You can't argue innocent intent when the leak shows you strategizing about how to hide evidence. Before we continue, if you want to help us continue to bring you the real news, please hit that like button and subscribe. It makes a huge difference. Watch.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference in your paycheck. Let's get rid of the ad.
Fire-breathing Magna incarnate we know today. Here's a little bit of before and after.
In a state where abortion is legal within certain parameters and where contraception is also legal.
Barack Obama won in 2008 North Carolina due to illegal voting. Go ahead, Jake. Sorry.
Boris, where are you getting that from?
Bill Clinton's a very popular president.
No doubt.
Hillary Clinton is very well liked right now, one of the most popular politicians we have. As far as the weak excuses go, Hillary Clinton tried to use the movie Lincoln by her buddy Spielberg as an excuse for lying to the American people. I think Trump will be almost a novelty candidate. What's Hillary Clinton done? She's only caused for the DOJ and FBI hire more people to investigate her. Is that the threshold to be president now, not to go to jail?
The specific meeting that was leaked apparently occurred during the classified documents investigation. The FBI had subpoenaed documents from Mar-a-Lago. Trump's lawyers were advising him on how to respond. And in this meeting, they warned Trump, explicitly said that if you don't comply with the subpoena, if you don't turn over all the classified documents, that's a crime. You will be prosecuted. You will go to prison. The lawyers were trying to get Trump to understand the seriousness, to convince him to comply fully. But according to the leak, Trump resisted, talked about ways to avoid full compliance, discussed what excuses might work, considered how to hide certain documents. All of it showing Trump knew he was supposed to turn over everything, but was looking for ways to avoid doing so. The most damaging part of the leak is Trump's own voice. He's on the recording. You can hear him discussing the documents, hear him acknowledging that some of them are still classified, hear him showing classified military documents to people without clearances. And most damning, hear him acknowledge that he could no longer declassify documents now that he's a civilian. That last admission destroys Trump's entire public defense. He's been claiming for months that he declassified everything, that as president he had authority to declassify documents just by thinking about it, that there's no crime because the documents weren't classified anymore. But on this leaked recording, Trump himself admits he can't declassify things now that he's a civilian, that the documents are still classified. That admission proves his public defense is a lie, proves he knows the documents are classified, proves he's been misleading the public about his legal situation. The discussions about attorney-client privilege in the leaked meeting show Trump's team trying to figure out what they could and couldn't say, what information was protected, what might be discoverable if the privilege was pierced, and there are apparently discussions about how to structure communications to maximize privilege protection, how to claim privilege broadly to hide damaging information. All of that strategic use of privilege to hide evidence is itself problematic, because privilege exists to protect legitimate legal advice, not to shield crimes. When lawyers and clients discuss how to use privilege to hide evidence of crimes, that's not protected. That's conspiracy. The instructions to aides to sign false compliance statements are criminal. If Trump told his staff to certify to the FBI that all documents had been returned, when Trump knew that wasn't true, that's obstruction. That's making false statements to federal investigators. That's subornation of perjury. Each of those is a serious federal crime. And the leak apparently has Trump on tape discussing these instructions, proving he knew the statements were false, proving he intended to deceive the FBI. The FBI finding more classified files after Trump's team claimed everything had been returned proves the false statements were actually made. Trump's lawyers certified compliance, said all classified documents had been returned, but then FBI executed a search warrant and found hundreds more classified documents, found them in places Trump's team claimed had been searched, found documents Trump's team said didn't exist. That discrepancy between what Trump's team claimed and what FBI found is powerful evidence of obstruction. And now the leak shows Trump discussing making those false claims, shows the obstruction was deliberate. The leak-piercing attorney-client privilege gives prosecutors access to communications that would normally be protected. Courts have ruled that privilege doesn't apply when communications are in furtherance of crimes. And these leaked conversations show Trump and his lawyers discussing how to commit crimes, how to obstruct, how to hide evidence, how to make false statements. That means the privilege doesn't apply, which means prosecutors can use the leaked recordings as evidence, can subpoena the lawyers to testify about what Trump said, can access all the emails and memos from this meeting. All of it now admissible because the crime fraud exception applies. Legal experts calling this smoking gun evidence is accurate because the leak proves every element prosecutors need. It proves Trump knew about the subpoenas, proves he knew compliance was required, proves he discussed ways to avoid compliance, proves he instructed others to make false statements. All of that together is textbook obstruction of justice, and it's on tape. Can't be denied, can't be explained away, just clear proof of crimes. Alright, so let's dig into exactly what was in the leaked meeting, how it got leaked, and why it makes Trump's conviction and imprisonment inevitable. The meeting apparently took place at Mar-a-Lago sometime in 2022 during the initial phases of the classified documents investigation. The FBI had issued a subpoena for all classified documents in Trump's possession. Trump's legal team was responding to that subpoena, and they called this meeting to discuss strategy. Present were Trump, several of his personal lawyers, and potentially some staff members who had knowledge of where documents were stored. The purpose was to figure out how to respond to the subpoena, what documents to turn over, what legal arguments to make, how to minimize Trump's criminal exposure. According to the leak, Trump's lawyers started by explaining the legal situation clearly, told Trump that the subpoena was legally binding, that failure to comply would be a crime, that prosecutors would definitely charge obstruction if Trump withheld documents. The lawyers were apparently trying to emphasize the seriousness to make Trump understand that this wasn't a political issue or negotiation. This was a criminal investigation where non-compliance meant prison. But Trump's response, according to the leak, was to push back, to argue that some documents were personal, that others were declassified, that he didn't have to turn over everything, and then to start discussing strategies for avoiding full compliance. The specific strategies discussed apparently included claiming that certain documents were covered by executive privilege. Even though lawyers explained that executive privilege doesn't apply to classified national security information, Trump apparently wanted to try that argument anyway. Another strategy was to claim that some documents had been inadvertently mixed with personal papers and couldn't be easily separated, that searching for them would be burdensome. Trump's team apparently discussed how to structure that argument to delay having to produce documents. A third strategy was to simply deny that certain documents existed, to claim they'd been destroyed or lost or were never in Trump's possession. All of these strategies amount to obstruction. They're not legitimate legal arguments. They're ways to avoid complying with a subpoena. The most damning part of the leak is Trump showing a classified military document during the meeting. Apparently, Trump was trying to illustrate some point about what he could and couldn't declassify, and he pulled out a document and showed it to people in the room, some of whom didn't have security clearances. And on the recording, you can hear Trump acknowledging the document is classified, saying something like, "This is still secret," or "This is classified." That admission, captured on recording, proves Trump knew he had classified documents, knew they were still classified, and was showing them to unauthorized people. That's violations of the Espionage Act. That's unauthorized disclosure of classified information. That's a serious federal crime with significant prison time. Trump's statement that he can't declassify things anymore because he's a civilian is the admission that destroys his entire defense. Trump's public position has been that everything was declassified, that he used his presidential authority to declassify documents, and therefore there was no crime in possessing them. But on this leaked recording, Trump himself says he can't declassify things now, that he's no longer president, that the documents remain classified. That admission proves his public defense is false, proves he knows the documents are classified, proves he's been lying about declassification. Any jury hearing that recording will conclude Trump was lying, will convict him based on his own admission. The instructions to aides about signing false compliance statements are documented in notes from the meeting. Apparently, after discussing strategies, someone raised the question of how to certify to the FBI that all documents had been turned over, and Trump or his lawyers discussed having aides sign statements certifying compliance. Even though everyone in the meeting apparently knew that not all documents were being turned over, that discussion of making false statements to the FBI is conspiracy to obstruct justice. It's subordination of perjury, and it proves Trump knew his compliance was false, knew he was keeping documents he should have returned. The leak happening at all raises questions about who was in the meeting and who had access to recordings or notes. Attorney-client privilege normally protects these meetings from disclosure, so how did this get out? One possibility is that someone in the meeting wasn't actually covered by privilege. Maybe a staff member who wasn't there in a legal capacity. Maybe someone who was asked to take notes. That person might have recorded the meeting or kept detailed notes, and when they realized what was being discussed was criminal, they decided to leak to prosecutors or press. Another possibility is that one of the lawyers themselves leaked. Maybe they were uncomfortable with what was being discussed. Maybe they realized they were being asked to participate in obstruction, and they decided to protect themselves by documenting what happened and providing that documentation to authorities. Lawyers have ethical obligations. They can't participate in crimes. And if they realize their client is trying to involve them in obstruction, they need to withdraw and potentially report what's happening. The leak being provided to both press and prosecutors ensures maximum impact. The press coverage creates public awareness, makes it impossible for Trump to claim this is all secret evidence that shouldn't be considered, makes the admissions public so everyone can hear Trump in his own words. The prosecutor access means the recordings and notes can be used as evidence, can be presented to grand juries and trial juries, can be the basis for additional charges. The crime fraud exception to attorney-client privilege is crucial to understanding why this leak can be used as evidence.
Hey, this guy does a hell of a good job. You want to listen to the rest of it, and you want to pass it along to your like-minded friends. If this is true, Trump's in a world of hurt. And if he gets incarcerated, as I've stated in previous videos, a lot of women that were young girls will come forward and testify that he raped them. You think not? Well, I guess we'll see, won't we? Pass it along, and thanks for listening.